Good. Okay, so let me go over this. One of the things I wanted to do, I was hoping to get a bigger turnout, but we'll probably have another catch-up meeting at some point. So post-pandemic, I wanted to start running things by everybody, and more than anything, I wanted to get everybody to share their opinions with me on some of these topics I want to talk to you guys about. One of the things that is happening with Bingham is that the tournament is growing significantly. And last Bingham in Amsterdam was supposed to be 64 teams, and that ended up having 75. And we were lucky that they had 9 grass pitches so they could handle it. But for the most part, very few locations have that capability. So we're starting to look at what does that mean if we continue to grow? Do we need to have more days? Do we have to put the limit to how many teams can play? What's the impact of all of that? So there's a tournament planning committee working on this, which is we're looking at what the future is going to be like. What are the possible scenarios that we can handle? So comments on this are helpful. We also have a Charlotte that's doing the North American Cup, and they are regrouping to secure all the space again post-pandemic, and will get back to us and let us know where they're at on that. So we should hear from them hopefully in the next few weeks, hopefully. And also there is some interest to creating some beach rugby or beach touch tournaments, particularly in the West Coast. They're talking about that. They might not be, most likely they will not be IGR tournaments, but one of the things that I tap on that mostly to make sure that it's great that there are more tournaments. It's really cool. The one important thing that we want is that they're not overlapping with Bingham or North American Cup, and because as IGR members you have to be aware of that, and there's probably, we're talking about putting some regulations on that if you do not comply there will be some type of penalty of some sort just as a member. But in any case, the important thing is that there's tournaments happening and we're getting back on our feet, and we're growing. So it's a nice problem to have. It's a problem, but it's a nice problem to have. The one thing that we're seeing with the new teams, there's been a bunch of new teams that showed up, particularly in the south of North America and Mexico. There's a bunch of new teams. The process of getting new teams is kind of old. There's some issues on the Constitution that I'll talk about, that the wording is wrong, and there are things that they're asking that the majority of the team is gay. It's like, well, first of all, it should be LGBTQ plus, and also how can we prove that? There's no. I mean, it's just not a logical request. So we're going to update those points in the Constitution, which will be, all of this will be run by the general meeting in Ottawa. But the point is that we will change the application process. We'll probably make it more of an automated process where you submit on an online environment. We are struggling to get people to vote. So what we're going to do is we're going to have voting windows, and hopefully 3 or 4 times a year. And, within those windows, if you do not vote, you lose your chance to vote, basically. So it's putting pressure on, being responsible. We're not going to, right now it's very random. Whenever we have enough teams, we send out for a vote, and we have to be chasing votes, and that's not really working. So if you guys have questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time. One of the things that came, one of the things that came up on one of the meetings, and I put it as an action in here, is that we need to be sharing the applications that are being sent with all the information of the teams. In that way, there's a more educated voting process, so people will know more about the team, because right now people are asking, hey, you want this team to be a member, yes or no? And that is not sufficient. But one of the things we also want to do is we want to scratch the request for having a majority of LGBTQ plus members. We'll have some requests of participation in the community, but we definitely want to have the support of 2 other existing teams that will be backing them on their application. I know once we put all of this online, then it will be easier to share. And now David with the media department for IGR, he is making all of this available within our MS 365 environment, and all clubs have now their IGR account that they can access this environment. So all of these things, all of this information will live within the IGR ecosystem. The other thing that's happening is that we got, IGR got funding from the English Rugby Union to hold some touch rugby events. So we are embracing touch rugby. With that, sevens is something that's coming up a lot. So we will embrace touch and sevens, and some women play 10 rugby as opposed to 15. So we are, we are probably embracing all the different types of rugby. The point is that touch, sevens or 10 will not be part of Bingham. We already have a problem with the 15s, but those, will not be part of Bingham tournaments. Now, the women's teams, on the other hand, will be part of Bingham, and we're getting a lot of requests. So we are potentially seeing a growth on women's teams for Bingham. And that's also part of what we're starting to look at on what we need to foresee for the future of Bingham. Constitution was written when we were barely 10 teams and we were just doing the Bingham Cup, and it was basically a way to organize ourselves and have the Bingham Cup as a tournament. Well, we've grown way past that, and some of the language on the Constitution is outdated, and we need to revisit a lot of items in there. We're in the process of doing that, and we will present again in Ontario. We present our findings and our proposition of the revision. But since we're doing that, it would be good if you guys take the time to read the Constitution. It is in the IGR website. You can download it, go through it, make notes, send those notes through Chris to me, so I can just make sure that we address those issues in our meetings. Now, one of the things that I also find out, during this time that I've been a trustee with IGR, I found these main obstacles. One of the obstacles is the lack of team participation. And I think that we're going to resolve that with the 4 times a year where we're having this voting process. Hopefully we'll have like meetings during those times during the year, and perhaps in there we will have more engagement with the teams. The other issue is the management impact of how much it's grown. We're all volunteers and we're doing this on the spare time, and we have to deal with World Rugby on the trans issues, and then we have to go to all these meetings for discrimination and inclusion, and then there's a lot of meetings that we're going through, and it's becoming IGR is being pulled in many directions as an organization on participate participation in a more active way on the community, on the sports community. And we really need to revisit that and how to create perhaps volunteer-based working groups that will handle other areas that are growing. So this is something that I'm aware of, and I would like to address and see how we're going to become a more professional organization that way. And the other problem is that the lack of funds and the lack of volunteers. The lack of funds is that we only get, IGR gets like, I believe it's like a 5 or 6% of Bingham. So every 2 years, that's are the funds that keep IGR running through the year. So we barely have any web support we can speak of. So we're barely staying afloat on services that we should be able to provide better services. And the volunteers, I think that one of the issues right now with the volunteers is that we need a bit more clarity of what we need. So I'm going to send a survey out that I would like for you guys to share with your teams for us to be able to get what expertise is out there that is willing to help out. Some of the solutions I think that could help us will be to help addressing several of these points is that I'm really pro in getting a membership fee, like a minimum membership fee. 20, 50 bucks. I don't know, not a huge amount, because not a lot of teams cannot afford it, but it will be a small amount. And the objective of it is that teams have a commitment to renew it every year. So we don't have to be chasing what teams are active and teams who are not, because right now we do not know. There's teams that are not responding, and one of the problems we have is that the team wasn't responding, and then, we were thinking about, letting it dissolve, and then, there was an issue about that. So I want to put the responsibility also on the teams, so that we all help out in here, and putting a fee will be one way of doing that. Clearly, the financial situation of different countries has an impact in here, so we probably will use something that we can use as a reference, like might be perhaps common in every country. Unfortunately, I could think of only like things like a Big Mac, that's at least having to say, okay, well, that's how much a Big Mac costs in these countries. And then based on that, we extrapolate what the value of the fee will be. In that way, we do not put a big burden on. Some countries in South America, are in really bad shape. So, and I had a meeting with the Mexico team last week, and all of the South Americans, I'm from Argentina originally, so I can speak Spanish, and we were doing it in Spanish. So all of the South American teams jump on board, and, their point was very clear. It's like they cannot even consider Bingham because, $300 for them is what will be $1,500 for us. So, those are scenarios that I'm trying to be aware of on this process. Definitely, I think that because of what it entails to do, of the time, what a time-consuming process it is, a registration fee for new teams should be in place. So if you want to register a new team, there should be a fee for that processing fee. Same thing, the value will be in accordance to the exchange of the country. And I also have this is one idea, but it's probably going to be hard to implement. I want to have like a free membership to all players, that all players can have like an IGR ID number. My interest on that is to get demographic of IGR. I want to have an idea of how many players we have across all the countries and all the clubs. And the objective for that is is to start to develop marketing strategies that are going to be able to have IGR negotiate better deals for all the teams. But in order to do that, I will need to show some of these numbers. Most likely, the first step I will do is I will send out a survey to all the teams, where the teams will just share the information of, how many members each team has, whether it is players or supporters, and what's their reach on their webs, on the social apps. All these numbers will be significant. So when we start talking to larger brands, we will be able to have those statistics to share with them to show how big we're becoming. And that brings me to talking about fundraising and sponsorship. One of the things I want to do is that once we have this information, I want to start reaching out to brands, to larger brands that will be interested in sponsoring the tournaments themselves. I will like to have, there is an interest for brands like Nike or Adidas to sponsor tournaments. And if they sponsor a tournament, whether if it's going to be an X amount of money that will give in order to run the tournament and that will help us reduce the cost of the registration, and perhaps even give us a splash fund to help countries that cannot afford coming, and create a fund to support countries to come. Probably if we have brands like Nike or Adidas, most likely we'll be able to get things like jerseys for the teams and balls or whatever swag we can get out of in the process. We'll definitely try to get it. This type of agreements will require a commitment that will be probably like 5 years or so, that will make a commitment with that brand that they will be the ones sponsoring the tournament, whether it's a North American Cup or it's Bingham, but they will be sponsoring the tournament and will be getting, basically they will help us run it. And that's my objective of that, is to help out the teams, hopefully with, getting the jerseys and getting the cost of having equipment. It was helpful, and also, making it less expensive for teams to come to Bingham. Another of the ideas that I have, that we're working on, I have like a small marketing team of volunteers that are helping out on this, and we're looking at brands that we can also have activations that will be regional. Like, let's say that if we target Budweiser as a sponsor, we will organize an activation with Budweiser that will be done regionally. So each team could have like a fundraiser sponsored by Budweiser at their local bar, and all the funds are for the team. IGR will just be a facilitator on the process. So my interest is to make IGR, get the strength from the teams for IGR, and have IGR produce better deals for the team in a way that teams do not have to be chasing around, sponsorships. And I think that we're big enough where we could do this. It's going to take a lot of work, but at least we're starting, and a lot of these ideas might be a bit too big, but I think it is it is at least starting on the right direction. So that's on fundraising and sponsorship. There's another thing that is affecting us a lot: mental health. I mean, mental health is a concern in general, and of course, rugby is not exempt. And unfortunately, we lost last year some IGR members to suicide, and this is something that is affecting us all. There's a group in the UK that started this organization called Loose Heads that are their objective is to identify, support, and prevent mental health crisis. And we're starting a pilot program with them in the UK. But clearly we want to expand. So I will definitely want to have a representative from each team interact with them. So in that survey, I will ask for those names of who will want to volunteer for that. And then I will put them in touch with the group in the UK and create that synergy and be a part of IGR. And obviously we're not mental health professionals. This is just like a support group, and we'll need to be aware of having an access to a network of mental health professionals that we can refer people in crisis to in all different areas. And then the other idea I have, and this came out of when we did the IGR summit. I'm calling this the IGR Academy, but basically what it is a knowledge sharing experience. The issue I find in here is that a lot of the teams lose their learnings or their knowledge from board to board. They lose whatever was learned by the group of executives running the club. You get the next group and not much is handed off to the other group. And it doesn't happen everywhere. Some are better than others, but I think that we could become like a knowledge sharing space where people can give us documents, videos, presentations that could be useful for other teams. And where some of the presentations during the summit had that characteristic, and that gave me the idea as well. We should have things like this that would be helpful. Even if there's coach clinics or how to run a nonprofit or team finances and things like that, that will be helpful to other teams. Particularly, if you have a financial guy running a team, the team finances, of course, this person will know a lot more than someone that just volunteered because there was nobody else able to do it. And that I want to facilitate. I know for my personal experience, coming into this role on IGR, there was no handoff to speak of. It's just like, okay, there you are, you're a trustee, and just do it. And I mean, clearly there was some overall ideas of it, and there's some descriptions, but it was really a way to get you up to speed to what's going on. That never happened, and that's what I'm trying to create in here. So I will definitely need to have some volunteers for there to help me with this. I will need some librarians, to call it some way. Right now it will be to help me collect, catalog, and set up this database of information, and we will put it in the website. And then lastly, the one thing I want to talk about is the role of IGR. I think that I am seeing the change of how we're growing, and I think that we need to be taking the role of leadership in areas about the LGBTQ plus community for sure, but then are we doing arbitration of conflicts? Are we getting involved on trans players' actions and things like that? I think that, I know the answer of the majority about these issues, but I really want to hear from you all what do you think, what is that you expect from the organization? And this is more of a personal interest in here. I just want to hear your voices on on what are your expectations from IGR. So this is pretty much all I wanted to talk to you guys on this meeting today. I know it's a lot that I did on this presentation. I will create a survey with this document, a briefer, a shorter version of this document, because this is more my mental notes, but I will create a document where I will give on each item the space for you guys to write your opinions in a paragraph. And that way I have it, I have it more documented. And creating a Google form for this is not that much of hard work, and it will help me organize all the responses from the teams. So hopefully I'll have that by next week, but if I don't, be patient with me. I will either have it next week or the following. It's a lot. It's very ambitious. I know that, but at least the intent of getting it going is there, and my objective is just to be proactive about moving forward with this. Do you guys have any questions at this point?
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions. This was a really good presentation, and it really sort of is nice to kind of level set after dealing with everything with COVID and just kind of get everybody on the same page. And it just seems like from what you have here, as far as priorities, it's definitely where my head's at as well. So I think all of this stuff is really, really good. So thank you so much, Gabriel, for getting people together and
Cool.
talking about it.
Thank you. I'm glad you like that. And Chris, I mean, I talk with Chris like about every month, but
yeah, there was only one question from people in advance, but I don't think it really, you might not have the answer to it, because I guess it's probably going to be more for the tournament planning committee. The only question was about Bingham's seeding, the seeding for Bingham, since there has been no tournaments for the last 2 years, essentially. So that was.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be a meeting soon on the Bingham tournament, and that is going to be addressed. But I have a meeting with the trustees on Monday. I'll bring it up. I will have a trustee meeting Monday. I think it's the second or third Monday of every month. So that's.
Yeah, I mean, the only potential questions I know that people on my board had were about the same thing. Basically, how is Bingham going to be handled as far as like the liaison committee deciding who gets barbarians? Is there going to be any attempt made to combine teams with low numbers? Because I know that and I don't think we're alone here. We probably got maybe 14 or 15 people going, but for a 4-day tournament at our level, there's just no way that's going to be enough. So kind of a specific question, but I'm guessing other clubs are in similar spots.
So you broke up a little bit. Did you get much of that, Chris?
So I think it was the point was that you might not have a full side. Was that what you were
Correct.
saying? Yeah.
Yep.
And so in terms of barbarians, will there be, well, I mean, in all Binghams I've gone to, which have been most Binghams, because I'm old. I
don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, neither.
There's always the sort of in advance, some teams sort of band together, right? Teams with historical connections, they might say, well, we don't have 2 full sides, we'll join as one. That's sort of separate from the barbarian side, which is really the people who are teamless for the most part.
Right.
Yeah, so they're their own thing. But there's always the possibility of teams combining at the tournament as well, and
Right.
past tournaments. I guess we'll hear soon about what the Bingham the next year this year will look like. But yeah, that's always sort of been in the mix.
We can, I mean, if it helps, we can set up for each region kind of like a way to organize the teams and see who wants to play with whom. I mean, I know that like for Europe, several teams are doing that because they have the same problem. Not everybody can afford going to Ottawa, and therefore they do not have a full side. And
I think
they're
that's a great
really
idea to sort of give people the option of maybe reaching out to each other beforehand via a Zoom call or something like that. Because I think the one thing that I know our team wants to avoid is sending 15 or 16 people and then like we don't get as many barbarians as we thought, or we even get split up into just a team of barbarians to fill in other sides. So I don't know.
Look, I think that the barbarians are going to be their own team. They are in this situation.
Yeah.
They will have to be their own team because it is a unique situation where we have so many teams that want to keep their team identity. They don't really want to be a barbarian team, but they're willing to merge with another team. And we're here to give that option. If that's what teams wants to do, why not? I mean, it's not that you either be a full team or go barbarian. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
So what we could do, if it helps at all, we could have, I mean, I could be on that meeting, but there could be a meeting on your region to talk about it and organize a meeting between you guys and figure out how many of you want to consider being with another team. And
Yeah,
I know, like, for instance, I had like a couple of players that contacted me and say, hey, I don't have a team, I want to play. And so I put them in touch with the barbarians, but one of them says, I don't really want to go play with the barbarians. It's like, you're completely entitled to play to whomever you want.
Yeah.
So I put him in touch with another team that I knew it was short of players. So, I mean, if that becomes a concern and is a concern for a number of you, then we'll address it as such. There's no reason why and in any way I can facilitate the process, I'll do it.
That's great to hear, because I think it's always nice to sort of work on that sort of thing before, because then you show up, sometimes you just show up to the tournament and it's like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's have the conversation going and let us, are you already registered? Is your team already registered for Bingham?
A number of us are,
Okay.
and we have commitments for about like 14 spots as of right now. So we're in the process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know at the moment, I know that in Los Angeles and here, we had like a huge amount of players despite COVID, without even having like much of a recruiting effort. It was just people showed up that got tired of being locked up and locked down, and they came out and just like, okay, well, they wanted to play. But I know we have a lot of players that want to come. Do not know if we're going to have two sides yet, or we're going to have just too many players. So it is likely that we'll have players that might be available. I remember, like, when we were in Amsterdam, LA, we were short of players, and we got an extra player from the Lowlanders that played with us. So that always happens, so that shouldn't be a problem. And if we need to help, if you guys need help organizing it, yeah, why not? I mean, just not a big deal.
That would be great. Maybe what I can do then is reach out to either you or Chris or both of you, kind of like if we're going to be in trouble with them.
Yeah, and as I said, if you want to organize a chat with everybody, or I mean, it either is a Facebook chat, or you can use Teams in the Microsoft 365 environment of of IGR, however you want to do it, whether if it's on a video chat or just a regular chat, include me and I help you guys out. And then when you have an idea of which are the clubs that are looking for players, I put a shout out to all the other teams and see who is willing to come.
Yeah, for example, and the last Bingham, Ottawa had a pretty good side. I think we definitely had over 15, but there were at least 3 players who didn't have a home team who joined us. You know, like there's a guy from Vancouver. We had Vancouver starting up again, but this was, you know, back in Amsterdam. So for example, like, so he joined us, right? Because he had personal connections on the team. So there's always that ability to have, as Gabriel said, like these 1, 2, 3 guys that might join your team because, you know, they know some other guys on your team, or they're just looking for a team. They don't want to be on the Barbarian side. They'd just rather join another team. So if you have 14, 15, I think you're probably in a fairly safe zone of getting a couple more. You know, there's also those teams that might have only 8 or 10 guys, and then they're more looking for another team that only has 8 guys, and then they join together. Yeah.
We'll work it out. We'll help you out. Cool. Do you guys have any other questions or all good? Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna stop the recording and